microphones for this.
Okay. Oh. Hello. Hi. Hi, Chuck Moore,
Hi, Mark Mothersbaugh.
host producer.
Welcome to Grind and Flow. I'm your host, the aforementioned Chuck Moore, and that is my guest today, composer, artist, performer Mark Mothersbaugh. His indelible sonic stamp has elevated innumerable TV shows, video games, and motion pictures. Most notably scores for Minecraft, Lego, Pixar, and Marvel movies, iconic themes for Rugrats and Pee-wee's Playhouse, and of course the seminal early films of Wes Anderson. And let's not forget that little band he's fronted for over half a century, the Spud Boys from Akron, Ohio, Devo. This incomparable collective is the subject of a recent Netflix documentary simply titled Devo. The film recently received a 2026 Grammy nomination for Best Music Film. The film is an excellent chronicle of the rise and enduring legacy of Mark and his bandmates. The classic lineup was, of course, Mark, Gerald Casale, Bob Mothersbaugh, and the late Bob Casale and Alan Myers. And yes, that's two sets of brothers in there. Watching the doc is not necessary to enjoy this episode, but does get deeper into Mark's powerful origin story. To top line it, at age 7, it was diagnosed that Mark had been legally blind since birth. His formative years, a literal blur. But with glasses he received on his 8th birthday, the world exploded with clarity and possibilities. Immediately, Mark had literal dreams of becoming an artist. Also of note, Mark and his bandmates met as art students at Kent State University around the time of the 1970 Kent State Massacre. This, of course, was the tragedy in which 4 unarmed students were killed by National Guardsmen. This event certainly informed their shared philosophy of de-evolution, a perspective that man isn't progressing, but regressing and mucking up the planet. This was an underlying principle behind multimedia performance art projects that actually did evolve into Devo the band. I've always been curious about this outlook. On the surface, it seems like a path to nihilism and despair, but Devo's music has always been so playful, absurd, and often dark-humored, but those melodic and lyrical hooks are too darn fun. And live, Devo is something else. I saw them recently on tour with the B-52s and Lena Lovitch, and it was quite the party. The music, the visuals, so inventive and electrifying. They were in constant motion for the full show. Those guys must be doing some serious cardio. Meanwhile, our takeaways from this episode and this conversation are numerous. We get into Mark's daily routine of what you might call art journaling, which sounds like an intriguing mindfulness practice. Also, Mark shares his unique perspective on how perceived handicaps can actually unlock our own superpowers. And we dive into how Devo has maintained their creative marriage for 50 plus years. Now, we've packed a lot into the next half hour or so. At times, we are all over the map, but one does not lightly unpack the ramifications of de-evolution. I was inspired by our chat, and I think Mark enjoyed it too. He was the first guest I've had to immediately offer to come back and talk more. I plan to take him up on that. So let's get into it. Our conversation with Mark Mothersbaugh.
Pretend I'm 8 years old. Who are you and what do you do?
Okay, if you are 8 years old today, I would say I'm the art teacher on Yo Gabba Gabba. And every other episode, I draw a picture of something, maybe a potato on a skateboard. And then, like the potato on a skateboard, for instance, at the end of my segment, it either jumps out of the picture and chases me around, or I jump in and I join the potato on the skateboard or something. And if you were 8 years old 30 years ago, I would say I'm writing the music for Pee-wee's Playhouse. Or maybe that was 40 years ago. I don't even know.
Almost 40. Almost.
Okay, so 30 years ago would have been more like Rugrats.
Right.
So to an 8-year-old, I would have answers for every decade that's a little bit different.
Nice. And I wasn't too far above that age when I discovered you guys on SNL in a wonderful, what the moment. So overall, about all that you do, what do you find the most fulfillment? What do you enjoy the most about what you do?
Currently, because it changes now and then, but currently I draw on paper every day. I draw on cards. And They're little, uh, they're little snippets of things that happen during the day. If I hear somebody talking, or if I see something, like if I'm sitting somewhere kind of boring, but then I look around and I see something in the room that looks interesting to me, maybe I'll write it down. Or if I hear people say something while I'm at lunch and it's at the next table, sometimes I write that down and I turn it into a piece of art. And I collect those. And every time I get 100 of those, I put them in these red archival binders that you can get fairly inexpensively at a stamp store if you're nerd enough to know about stamp collecting, which I don't think anybody does anymore. I think it's over pretty much.
So that sounds like a great way to get away from our phones. That's almost like, are you familiar with the concept of your daily pages, the artist's way?
Yeah, this is kind of like a journal for me, and it's like it's a life project. I've been doing it for over 50 years, and I do at least a card a day. Sometimes, if it's a crazy, wonderful day, I get to do 20. It's something that makes me happy, and if there's other things that during the day that kind of I don't like at all, I can concentrate my energy on this. I've been touring with Devo a lot this year, and we're in our 70s, so it's like the hour and a half you're on stage is awesome. It's great. It makes you remember what it was like to be on stage when you were 25, and we're doing a lot of the same music because that's what people want to hear. They don't want to hear the newest song from Devo. They want to hear the stuff that made them feel like, okay, maybe the world isn't totally crazy, although it was. But drawing on those cards is something that I can do if I'm sitting at an airport or if I'm backstage waiting for, like we were touring with the B-52s recently. So it's like we took turns on who would go on first, us or them. And everybody always wanted to be the first ones on because that meant there'd be enough time to go out to dinner afterwards. If you were the last band on, if you're the ending band, then that meant that by the time you got cleaned up and got ready to go, all the restaurants in Charleston or Atlanta or Denver or wherever you were closed.
Sounds like it's good therapy. A lot of people that I talk to view their work or their pursuits as either a form of therapy or prayer. Do your cards or any of your work hold that place in your life?
Oh, definitely. I think it's got a little bit of both in it for me. And definitely it has therapy because, like right now, flights are all screwed up around the country. So just doing what was going to be a couple-hour flight back from, where were we coming from the other day? Atlanta or something? Oh, no, Houston. I was flying from Houston to L.A. And the flight got changed, like by 2 or 3 hours, 2 or 3 times during the day. So what should have been just a couple-hour flight, into town, turned into an all-day event. But for me, I was able to go, yeah, I get to do a couple more cards. So I could just reach into my backpack and pull some more paper out and pull out my brush pens and work on that. So that works for me really well.
So logistical or travel delays aside, what is hard about what you do, and how do you push through those challenges, those difficult times?
It's like 5 years ago, I was a guinea pig for COVID. And the COVID, I waited too long to go into the hospital because I was living by myself and I was just going, I just push through this stuff. It's no big deal, whatever it is, because I was working on 2 films and a video game all at the same time. I was writing music for all 3 and I was juggling them and had to get things in at time. And then I went into emergency. And while I was within the first couple of days, they didn't know what to do for COVID back in the middle of 2020. So they put him on an incubator. I didn't need that because I had really strong lungs from being a singer. I just shouldn't have been on it. It was like they were trying. It was like the early days. It was chaos. But somebody hit me in the eye and broke my eye. So my right eye doesn't function anymore. And it's something that I have to deal with constantly.
Right.
And I forget every now and then, about that.
Right.
And then I think about what's the upside of that, of losing eyesight. Well, first off, I found out that stereo is less important than I thought it was, except for when you're going down steps or something.
Right, right, depth perception.
That can throw you off. But my oldest daughter, we adopted her because we were told she was going blind, and I go, oh, wait a minute, I don't know if I'm ready for a blind. And my wife goes, come on, you had eye problems your whole life. We can deal with that. And turned out to be an amazing girl. But she was blind in one eye, and then I came home from COVID blind in one eye, and she saw me pouring coffee on the table next to the cup, and she said, Dad, let me show you something. And she reached over and took my pinky of where I was holding the coffee pot and stuck it out, and then she showed me how you touch the glass first and then pour your coffee. And I was like,
that's remarkable.
Oh, that's awesome. And that was kind of nice because, she always felt a little bit, because of her eyesight, restrictions, she always felt a little awkward about it and wouldn't talk about it in front of people and stuff like that. And so I started talking about it then for both of us. And it was kind of nice. So it was kind of like a nice way to get to bond with my daughter a little more than I was going to ever have a chance to do. So that I'm going, okay, so it kind of sucks to lose your eyesight in one eye. But then on the other hand, it was kind of nice for other reasons. So.
If you haven't already, please tell a friend about Grind and Flow. And hey, what's the show about, they might rightly ask. Grind and Flow is about the grind, the intention, the hard work, the flow, inspiration, and happenstance. Every episode, 'tis I, Chuck Moore, who presents impactful origin stories and insights into self-care and personal growth. These are relatable stories from notable people across the arts, entertainment, business, and beyond. Grind and Flow, creative minds worth your time.
That seems almost very literary or plot development in that your famous part of your origin story is, them finding out that you were legally blind at 7, and then now you're having a daughter that's partially blind. Do those times before your eyesight, did they still come into your dreams or your perceptions or your thoughts or memories? Like your pre-vision?
Yeah. And I'm really certain that my handicap is what enhanced my creativity, because like last year, I was in the kitchen, and this eye that's blinded, it has partial. I can see like a fog. I can tell if it's day or night, and I can see blobby shapes moving, so I can sense movement. But I was in the kitchen and not doing anything, and then I saw a black blob come into that side of my, vision, and it was a dog. And then I looked over with my other eye that can see, and I realized it was just a shadow. And I started going, wait a minute, I'll bet you my mind was doing that when I was a kid, because I remember not being able to see things, but I could see blobs, and I could see light and dark and shapes, and my mind was constantly turning them into things. And so I think my mind still does that. I think it still works that way, especially with music. It's like, I go and I watch a movie for the first time with the director or with the producers or whoever, and before the film's over, I don't tell them this, but I already know what their music's going to sound like. I'm already playing it in my head along with the film, and I don't want them to think it's too easy, or I think that it's like that it comes to me that easy, but and then I talk with them, and then they give me details about what they're concerned about, what elements they want to bring into the film that aren't there or didn't translate properly with the animation or with the live action, or maybe Robert De Niro was sick that day, and I got to make him a little more romantic in that scene than he was doing on screen. And so you get these, music's kind of fun, you get all these things to do, but I was just I think my handicap actually enhanced my ability to be creative. And so when I talk to kids, that have handicaps, that are autistic or have other things. I meet kids now and then like that, and I look for an opportunity to talk to them about that and tell them how their handicap might be their strength, and how
Right.
it's something that sets them apart and gives them a view of life and a perspective that other people with just normal vision and that all have the same vision, it's not the same for them. They don't have that. Or if they, people that have two legs, it's like it's different for them than it is somebody with one leg. And there might be some advantages. There's a lot of disadvantages, obviously, but,
Right.
I just try and talk to them about maybe look for the positive in that.
Could we apply that to your ADHD? I've read somewhere that you said you've had ADHD, and that's kind of been a superpower.
Yes, that is for me. It is. I like to work on two or three things at once all the time.
Right.
Like I just did a Pixar movie where I wrote a large portion of it while I was sitting in hotel rooms all over the country, because I brought a keyboard and a computer with the movie on it, and I was able to wake up in the morning and write music during the day. And the other guys would go out and they'd walk around Cincinnati, and I'd already done that like a dozen times, on different tours. So
Right.
so skipping that and going right into writing music that day was it was enjoyable.
So have you been able to tackle the downside of ADHD, like the perfectionism and getting sidetracked?
Yes, the sidetrack thing, I have, time elements in my head, calendar elements, so I know okay, I got to have reel one finished so they can do a presentation to the executives, on Thursday. So I got to get it to them Tuesday so they can cut it in Wednesday and then show it on Thursday. And so I'm okay with that. And it makes me push the other things out of the way that I was doing, like maybe working on these cards. Like, well, I got a bunch of awesome clown drawings, but I'm putting them off till after Thursday. So I don't know, I can work on that stuff. It's pretty easy for me to change that around. I'm lucky. I'm a really lucky person. I always have been, and I'm thankful for that.
So speaking of all your film composition and for gaming and television, what was the transition like to go from a rock god visionary to being an artist in service of someone else's vision? Was that hard for you?
Okay, in the band Devo, it was started with two sets of brothers. My two younger brothers and Jerry's younger brother were part of the band from the very beginning, the get-go. And so we were always used to, and even went to great pains to make sure everybody got equal treatment. And, we gave out the publishing to everybody in the band, even the drummer, everybody got a piece of the publishing for the music, because that encouraged everybody. So when they're in the studio with me and I'm showing them a song, it was more encouraging for them to come up with ideas that would make the song stronger or bigger or better. So I was always used to collaboration and enjoyed it quite a bit. So working with the director turned out to be quite pleasant, because there's some great advantages to being in music. Like if you're a film editor, they give you a number, a SMPTE number, or a frame count number, and that's where they want it cut right there, and then that's where they want this happening right there. With music, they say, well, we want this to be the most emotional scene in the movie, and it's really important that everybody, identifies with the little girl when she's, realizing blah, 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 whatever, but they all talk, but it's all abstract. They're not saying here, give me a C sharp major chord and then segue into an F major chord. Nobody's doing that. Music's just, far out there enough to speak about it that my job is like writing something I love for a scene, or that I know is the perfect music for it. And then I just have to convince them that that's what they asked me for, that that's what they were telling me they wanted. I go, see, this is what you said you wanted. And I did it, and it came out pretty good,
Like a Jedi mind trick. They have to own the choice.
So that's my job, yeah.
So with Wes Anderson, I'd love to talk about him for a moment. Do you agree that your music was such a part of helping define what a Wes Anderson film is? And in a past past interviews I've read where you were almost like a musical Sherpa, and to showing him the different colors that an orchestra could provide. Can you talk about your relationship with Wes Anderson, and was it accurate to call that almost like a musical mentor to him?
Yeah, at the time that I was working, that I was introduced to Wes, there was something happening in the entertainment industry where production companies, like in the studios, they were saying, let's get that guy who did that, that Tide commercial, and they wanted people out of commercial world because they could tell them what to do, and they felt like they were safe, that they were less scared to work with them than artists. They wanted people that at the end of the day would do exactly what they said, and Wes was atypical to that. He was definitely an artist, and he was the kind of guy. He was like me in Devo in a way, because he was the guy that would say to Disney or whoever was doing the film, Sony with the very first one, Bottle Rockets. He'd say, "I'll give up a percentage of my profits if you let me design the merchandise, or if you let me design the marketing videos that are going to go out." And they're like, "Oh, you're going to pay us to paint the fence for us? I guess we could do that." And so I watched the studios; they all loved it. Like him, giving away his money so he could control the vision. And he was like that. He was like, I remember Royal Tenenbaums. He invited me to Harlem to come walk around the house they were shooting in, and that day they were shooting up in the little kid's room. It was upstairs. It was in one of those attic converted where the ceiling was like this, so the walls were angled in on the side, and the bunk bed was close enough to the ceiling that the kid in the top bunk bed could do artwork on the ceiling. And we're just talking, and he's looking at the artwork that's up there, and he goes, "Okay, we have to delay the shoot a little bit." And they go, "Why?" He goes, "That's not what those kids would draw on the ceiling." He goes, I got to do it. So he painted over, and he repainted the artwork himself. And I just loved that about him. That I felt something common about that with him, that we were kind of like similar on that sense. So I loved working with him.
And in regards with the mentor role, have you had opportunities to mentor people throughout your career that stand out for you?
Oh, gosh, both in music and in art. I'm not going to name people because there'll be people that say, "Why didn't he say me?" And
Right.
But yes, but there are people that I work with, and I talk to them like I watched people like Timothy. To me, Timothy Leary, and then my dad, who was General Boy in Devo. They were maybe the two most optimistic people I ever met. They were like very optimistic and very, they were great to be around. Their energy was always so great. And I remember Tim would be the guy. He'd be at a party. We'd be at a party somewhere in Hollywood, and he'd look over and he'd see somebody that was just kind of sitting in the corner, and he'd walk over and start a conversation with them. And he would strike up a conversation, and he was really good at getting people to come out and talk about themselves. And I always liked him for that. Another person like that, I don't know, did you ever meet Allie Willis? Do you know who she was? She wrote a lot of music, and she was a friend of Paul Rubens and mine.
Okay.
And those two people and a couple other people, we used to go out to Palm Springs for the fun of it, on weekends, and just forget about work for a couple days. But she wrote like a lot of Earth, Wind, and Fire music. Like she wrote "Do You Remember," a September song. But she was that person that if you showed her something, like if a kid came up and showed her like a drawing, for instance, she'd go, "Oh my gosh, that is so." She was that kind of a person who did that with everybody and was always so. And I always loved those people. I tried to be that person in Devo because the Devo message was kind of dour,
Right.
and
Right.
it's humans are the unnatural species on planet Earth, and we're the ones that are gonna destroy the planet if anybody. It's not going to be dogs, bears, cats, or deer. It's going to be humans. But I got to be Boogie Boy. Boogie Boy always got to look at the positive side of things and put that angle on it. So I liked that.
It's a beautiful world we live in, a sweet romantic place.
So with that whole devolution theory, how and where do you find hope? And has having children changed that? How do you not just be hopeless? If we're devolving, where do you find joy and hope?
Okay, well, the term devolving can be thought of in a number of ways, and ironically, the term was invented by ultra right-wing Christians that were anti-science, and they were making fun of Darwin and like putting down evolution and the possibility of evolution, and they were turning it into a joke. Like they were the people, that nowadays the version of them is they're eating the dogs and cats in your neighborhood.
Right.
They're the people that are saying stuff like that.
Ladies and gentlemen, devolution is not a theory, but a proven fact. My friends, man did not evolve from the ape, but the ape devolved from man.
But, we had been at Kent State during the, 1970. We were there for the shootings, and it was kind of shocking because when I first went to college in '68, and when I first became a student there, I was like, this is incredible. What I think and what I say makes a difference. I felt like that. Mm-hmm. I felt like that what I had to say about things in the world made a difference. And I couldn't really get behind the Vietnam War, even though that was like a lot of my friends were like either worried about having to get drafted or they were volunteering and they were like gung ho, let's go. For Uncle Sam, let's go stop communism. And I was kind of like, communism, if you read what they're talking about, it's kind of a beautiful ideal. It had a great message to it. It's just, unfortunately, communism was like capitalism and democracy. It's, controlled by humans, and humans are defective and have a dark side to them. And wondering, what is going on? It just doesn't seem like this is what should be happening in the world. And then we were kind of all like the beatniks. We were like hippie era beatniks at the time. We identified with, beatniks because they were like the first people post atomic energy that were saying, wait a minute, maybe humans are going the wrong direction. This is not good. Atomic bombs are not a great idea. Mm-hmm. And we were kind of identifying with that. And so we talked about that in our music. We wanted to have a message. We didn't want our message to be sex, drugs, and rock and roll, or, right. I'm snorting whiskey, drinking cocaine. I think I'm going to go insane, and that would be our message. That wasn't what we wanted to talk about. And so, we talked about maybe humans weren't the center of everything, or maybe if we were the center of everything, maybe we are defective. And so that's kind of what we talked about.
I'm surprised, especially it reinforced it going to the concert. It's not snarky. It's not cynical. Even on the surface, it might appear to be. It's joyful. The experience is very joyous. And how do you continue to find hope with that worldview?
Well, here's our take on de-evolution now. It's like, at first we were like a warning signal, we were trying, and people would like, that's crazy. Humans are the center of the universe, you're an idiot, shut up, and we had to contend with that. But now there's a lot of people that go, well, maybe humans are the one that's out of it. And our message now is more like, mutate, don't stagnate. I think kids now, they've got, the next generation of technology. And Devo started with technology, and we loved it. I mean, we loved it and didn't trust it and realized it was the kind of thing where you had to use it creatively and properly to do something great with it. And I think that's what's happening with kids now. Kids, like my kids, they don't believe all the stuff they read on, the social blogs. And I think they agree with me that the people that are on those blogs and the ones that get replayed, they're the most radical left and the most radical right. And they're saying ridiculous things just to, create a scene or just to get people to pay attention to it. And I think kids know not to trust that now. I think they're smarter than adults who read it and go, oh my God, the world is going to go to war with each other. And I don't think that's going to happen. The interesting thing about what's amusing to me is I was always considered myself fairly liberal. And I feel like I'm more in the middle. I feel I'm part of this gigantic middle that is the U.S. and the world. And it's about common sense and it's all the things that are good. It's all the things you want in life, that you want for people. You want people to be happy. You want them to eat. You want them to have a place to sleep. You want them to have medicine if they need it. You want all those things, and I think that those people in the middle all agree on that, and there's people on the far left and far right that they want to, they're saying they're eating the dogs and cats, or they're saying get rid of all the policemen, or let every single person from any country that wants in here in. I think a lot of that has to be, maintained. And I think kids could either get frozen like adults and go, I don't know what to do. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think kids are going to they're going to find ways to use new technology and that's even smarter and more creative and more productive than what adults have done with it so far.
Certainly Devo has been a long-term marriage. You mentioned that communal spirit. Obviously there had to have been, ups and downs over the years. Any thoughts about maintaining long-term relationships and how to keep those healthy?
Well, that's, that stuff is tough. It's like anybody who's ever been married knows what it's like to be in the same room, same dressing room, same car, same, hotel room, same job, same everything, same meals, same everything with one person. Imagine if you're doing it with 5 people or more or less. It's even more complicated. And I think, a lot of it just has to do with what's really important in the world, and that is for people to be accepting of others and to also, it's like what we need to do for just humanity in general. We need to be accepting of people that are different than us and people other than us. And I don't know, that's my thumbnail sketch.
So in terms of your development as a pop or rock songwriter, was there a turning point when you went from making all this noise in your early performance art pieces to a light bulb going off and writing really great pop and rock songs? Can you define a moment where, certainly a moment of inspiration, or was it a slow evolution?
Okay. You're talking about all Devo, right? You're talking about this?
Yeah, going back to Devo, just your development as a writer.
Okay. Well, I started off very interested in looking for sounds that nobody had heard before. I didn't adhere to their politics, but I liked some of the ideas that the futurists from Italy had back in 1920. And I used to always wish I was born 50 years earlier. I would love to have been living in Paris or Berlin back in the 20s. So we were looking for sounds and for things that related to 1975 as opposed to, 1965. I mean, I thought rock and roll was over by 1975. I thought that was it. I think what happened was, it was like I was painting an apartment is my day job in like 1974, 75. And I'm painting the ceiling and I'm hearing this music over the radio and it's going, la 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 la, and it's Pachelbel's Canon, which is one of the most beautiful pieces of music ever written. And I'm listening to it, and then I'm hearing lyrics come in, and they're going, hold the pickles, hold the lettuce, special orders, don't upset. And I just remember going, they just took the most beautiful song and turned it into a Burger King commercial.
No, sir. Hold the pickle, hold the lettuce, special orders don't upset us. All we ask is that you let us serve it your way.
I watched the news and it was saying that Burger King's sales have shot up, so they've almost caught up with McDonald's. They were like way far away, and they turned it into a whole big campaign where they had a country western, boom boom boom, hold the pickles, hold the lettuce, special, and they did a singing nun version, and they did like a swingle singer version, and they did a hard rock version, and I don't know, Jerry and I, we were talking like, who does change things? Who makes things different? And we thought, well, it's Madison Avenue. And,
Right.
Madison Avenue does stuff like they use techniques that get you to buy things you don't need, eat things that are bad for you, drive cars that are crummy, and be happy about it. And we thought, well, how do they do it through subversion? They're not like going head on like the punks. They're not nihilists. They're not doing it that way. They're not revolting. They're subverting. And so we thought, that's what we want to do. We want to put our message inside, and that's how by the third album we were doing like, well, we thought it was like the Devo funk. As close to funk as Devo could get was our third album, probably.
It's like the sugar that helps the medicine go down.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Mark, thank you so much.
Yeah, I hope you have something useful.
Absolutely. No, all of this, and it speaks, again, what I'm trying to do with this podcast.
And that was Mark Mothersbaugh. I don't use the word genius lightly, but, well, it just might fit, right? And already I'm processing another takeaway. His daily pages practice doesn't have to be drawing or even writing. There's tremendous value in putting away my damn phone more often and gently observing the world around me. And listening to more Devo. A full concert video from their most recent tour is now available for streaming on the Veeps platform. That's Veeps. The Grammy-nominated documentary, Devo, is now on Netflix. Also, MarkMothersbaugh.com is a fun place to learn about Mark's fine arts projects, access music like you've heard in this episode, and even shop for custom Mark Mothersbaugh eyewear. For this episode, special thanks go out to my good friend and former bandmate Mark Cozy for helping make this interview happen. He leads the acclaimed tribute band Devo-Matics. And to his credit, he made sure I didn't refer to Devo's iconic red energy domes as flower pots. Mark, you did me a solid. And to the rest of you, thanks for listening.